I was pretty surprised today when I started looking for some kind of documentation or references around how Bubble handles website traffic. And there's like very little out there. I posted on Twitter to see if anyone had any resources. I couldn't find anything. Um, I've looked, and and the reason I started looking is partly because of a conversation that I was having with Marissa yesterday on the stream around her concerns around can Bubble handle the traffic that she expects when they do a marketing push, and I've sought out a few more cases that for people that have gone through that just to kind of get some answer. There's not a lot of info now. I don't know whether that's because there's just not a whole lot to say about it. Like, is it just, you know, is it just that like we take care of that for you so you don't have to worry about it? Is that the answer? I don't know. Like, I'd like to know a little bit more about how that works. Even if I have no control over it, at least I would like to know, how Bubble handles that information. So I'll show you like the few places that I've looked so far. Where am I here? All right, so I've gone to like first if you just check out like the Bubble page to kind of see what I'm talking about here. If you're even comparing the plans, there's nothing here about website traffic. There is some information on the FAQ page under the scaling section. Bubble handles scaling your app automatically behind the scenes. You can purchase additional server capacity with a single click with no need to worry about provisioning servers or databases in advance. Our shared infrastructure is designed to dynamically allocate resources as needed to support web scale applications, and we offer dedicated hosting solutions for apps with custom requirements. So I kind of feel like it's just saying here, like, don't worry, we got this. Which is, like I'd like to know more. Would you like to know more? I would. There are no hard limits on the number of users, volume of traffic, or amount of data you can store. We support your growth from baby MVP to grown-up internet-wide phenomenon. Please contact our sales team to discuss enterprise pricing. So there's a few concerns that I've, about just not knowing, having any insight into this. While I do appreciate that Bubble handles a lot of the things that I would otherwise not want to have to worry about, like hosting, and custom setting up a custom domain, security. Bubble does a lot of that for us, and I do appreciate that. But there is I want to know when there are it become when I do find performance issues or bugs. It's helpful to know to narrow down the different possibilities of why something may be performing uh, poorly or not up to what I would expect. For example, the recent limits that I've hit with the importing large amounts of data into the database, uh, it seems like there's more documentation on how to build a scalable app from the workflow perspective or the data structure. There are some best practices around that, specifically in the ultimate guide to Bubble performance. But if you query in here too, traffic's only mentioned once. What I found in going through this document, going through this book, is that there is it's mostly around performance of workflows, right? So the performance of your app and the things that you can do in Bubble to make your application more performant from like a data, like a CRUD operations perspective. Like if you're running more efficient searches and queries and workflows. So that's mostly what I found in this book, and it does a great job of narrowing, really honing in on what the problems could be: server side queries versus client side queries. It does this guy does a great job of that, and I I live by this. But this is the only time traffic is mentioned. He also wants the site to get organic search traffic and wants every record to be displayable on its own page, which doesn't give us any info about, how Bubble handles website traffic in particular. So part of the reason is that I'm curious about this is that I've never built a traffic most of the tools that I built in Bubble are internal tools, and haven't gotten, I want to say, more than 100 users at any one time. So I've never had to deal with the upper limits of of how many people can access the page and download the app at one time, and which plan am I supposed to be on? I've never had to answer any of those questions yet. The apps that I built have also been very specific to, like, they're data heavy, right? Workflow heavy. I have an app where I'm running 25,000 workflows in a couple of hours. That's very data heavy, but it's not traffic heavy, right? None of the apps that I built are traffic heavy. So I've never had to deal with this, and just kind of doing research on what people must be thinking about, what people that are expecting heavy traffic, which plan should they be on, how should they optimize the pages so that the site doesn't crash when all of that traffic does come to it. All those things are kind of a question in my mind and the mind of the people that are building on Bubble, because we want to be sure that the app can handle large amounts of traffic. So here's a couple of use cases that I found where Brandon here, Brandon 8, has posted on the forum. Despite upgrading to the professional plan, my site continues to hit maximum capacity. So I want to go through this. I want to scroll through this and see some of the responses. What I will say is that I think, well, you know what? Let's get into it. Let's see what Brandon has to say here. I'm not sure where to put this opinion. I'm just a frustrated Bubble user. My situation is I have a website that is built on Bubble. Halfway through development, I realized that talking to several developers that moving my database to something like Xano would be wise, as I've got a database of 8,500 products, and it's being updated by the minute with new price information. Okay, so this is an interesting use case, right? 85,000 products is really not that much. Like, the Bubble database can handle 85,000 products, 8,500 products. Even if it was 85,000 products, that really wouldn't be that much. But the updating of the record count on a minute-by-minute basis is something that Bubble is going to struggle to work through. It's not that it won't do it. It's just that it's going to be probably slower than you would want. Because, like, if you're even in the Ultimate Guide to Bubble Performance, it says Bubble's not optimized for updating record lists of data that's more than 1,000 records. So if you have 8,500 records that you need to update on a minute-by-minute basis, you're gonna struggle. You're gonna struggle to get that done in the speed that you want. And I'm sure in this use case, the user experiences that probably the site itself is dependent on these minute-by-minute updates of pricing information. So I can see why this person would want to be looking to something like Xano for this. With Bubble not having to churn through its own database, one would think that it would free up the capacity. The concept was simple: house my product on data on Xano and then use Bubble as the front end, right? So that's very similar to what I'm doing in one of my apps also. The problem: a video went viral talking about my website on TikTok last week, and traffic exploded. Sadly, most were met with a blank site as Bubble completely crapped the bed. I get it, 2,000 users an hour for a price comparison site is a bit much for the $29 a month plan. So I appreciate that he's being honest here and saying that, look, I probably wasn't on the right plan to support that kind of traffic. Unfortunately, you never really know when your web is going to just pop off, when your app is going to pop off, and you're going to get a ton of traffic to it. So I can, but I appreciate that he called out, like, look, I was only on the personal plan, so that's probably part of the problem. I've since made a lot of optimizations to lower usage on Bubble. which was mostly on page load and other, and finally bit the bullet and upgraded to the professional plan. With traffic now much lower, 200 to 400 users an hour, a dedicated server space with bigger capacity, and Bubble not having to worry about anything in the database since it's all in Xano, surely the site will be good to go, right? The reality, of course not. As soon as I allowed my users to once again make search queries to my Xano database to find products, users were reporting blank pages, endless loading bars, and often just the classic app is busy screen from Bubble. I've gone through every optimization guide for Bubble scaling, and I don't know how many there are. I feel like there's only one. The only optimization guide that I'm aware of is the Peter Emily's guide to Bubble performance. I don't know of any other one outside of Bubble's manual, I guess. And I even ran tests to Xano to see that if that was causing issues. But when I do run calls to Xano, even during mass traffic times when Bubble site won't load, the longest huge search query to my database takes only 0.17 seconds. All right, so he's narrowing out here that the problem is not the query itself. It's not a search, because that can cause performance issues too. If you have an inefficient search set up, you don't have enough constraints on it, and you're querying, 100,000 records, yeah, that's going to cause performance problems. But he's saying that he narrowed that here, and you could test those queries on Xano to see how fast they go. That's taking less than a second. So that's not where the issue lies, is what it seems. Because that would have been my first question. Like, how have you looked at Xano? Have you indexed your columns in Xano so that it's searching efficiently? With the holiday shopping season just around the corner, I have zero faith in Bubble right now. Oh no. Why can't I just have a server that scales with me rather than force me to use bloated space with a ceiling? Use bloated space with a ceiling. I don't know what that means. Is there something I'm missing? Do I just have unrealistic expectations of a no-code platform? I'm not sure if I'm allowed to drop links here, but if you wanted to test the site out yourself, it's to see anything obvious that I'm missing, it's here. So this is the site. And I've gone to this site. I went to the site before the stream, and I didn't really see there wasn't very much of a lag for me. It was pretty quick. Discover the best deals for your gaming setup. Find deals on. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Am I supposed to put in like Amazon? Amazon? All right, and then you've got a list of products here. And this must be pulling from the Xano database, right? Am I only looking at product? I guess this is Amazon. I mean, the site just from what I've tested, which hasn't been all that much, but it is. I have looked through the different products here, and I've done a few searches, and there was no lag for me. It was very quick. All right, so the first person that responded to this was Keith, and this is a well-known contributor on the Bubble forum. What exactly are you using Bubble for if your database is external? I mean, I feel like you can use Bubble as just the front end. The front end web serving, simply speaking, page load in Bubble is the source of your slowness. How do we know that? The front end web serving, simply speaking, page loads in Bubble is the source of your slowness. Is the front end no code page builder that fucking awesome? Because it's kind of not. This is a serious question asked in good faith. Also, surely you know who I am. I'm not actually sure what he's asking here. Is he asking I don't know what he's asking. I don't know. Also, I run multiple personal plans just to provide support to bubblers who use my open source plugins. You can't seriously be saying by that the personal plan price is exorbitant in this context. He didn't say that. Is Bubble shitty price performance compared to Google Cloud Functions? For sure, but that doesn't seem to be what you're paying for Bubble. If your site could be otherwise static and have the skills, why on earth would you be paying Bubble anything? I'm seriously curious about this. What is Bubble providing to you at all? The expression builder, I mean, come on. Kind of a strange response here. I don't really get the it seems a little angry, but I just don't. I don't understand the tone of this response in to this question. I guess because he said he's losing faith in Bubble, but he's experiencing. Brandon is experiencing that because he legit just doesn't know what the problem is, and I think he's just trying to get to the bottom of that. FYF, you've done a really nice job on the site. Looks great. Looks quick. Yeah, same here. Why is it on Bubble at all? I don't get it. Okay, so Keith X agreed. It works great, but why is it on Bubble at all? It's a great question. It mainly comes down to the fact that Bubble is all I really know, and I think a lot of us can relate to that, right? Like my go-to is Bubble because I've spent so much time. I've spent so much time learning it and being proficient at it. So it's it's not unfortunate that in certain cases that I would need to go to another tool. There is such a thing as the right tool for the right job. Bubble doesn't solve every use case, but when something doesn't work the way you would expect, I really want to know why. And that's really why I'm doing this in the first place. It's like, well, if you are experiencing slowdown due to website traffic, why is that happening? Am I on the wrong plan? Is there did I put too many elements on a single page? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, I'm questioning it for myself. Like, I'm assuming that I'm in the wrong here, because I hope it's not a limitation of the development platform that I'm using, because that I have no control over, and that's scary. I'm not a developer and can't code, and I don't have time to learn all that. Everything I read on Bubble is it's the best solution if you want an app-like experience that can do complex things. I suppose I'm unsure of what defines complex. I do like the idea of offering different experiences to different users. For example, when I'm logged in as an admin, I have a group that is my admin dashboard, and it appears that lets me do things like automatically post a link to the product in Discord and send a tweet push. Yeah, Bubble is really good for this. Bubble was really good for creating different Bubble's really good at creating different the ease in which you can create different roles for like admin or just sub user or employee versus employer, and being able to build conditional logic on what those people do and see when they're in the app. I think I haven't seen a comparable tool that enables you to do that in such a flexible way, such the flexible way that Bubble does. Like stuff like that, little stuff that like that is nice to have. And I think that, well, maybe the tweeting and Discord and stuff, but I think this is the different user roles is very important. I think that's a great feature. Falls under a complex feature that only Bubble would offer, or if there are better visual front-end builders that can both scale with me, charge me all you want, just promise that the site will stay up. This is what I think most people are concerned about. I really don't think it's the money. I don't think it's like how much I would pay. You want to be able to rely on the site, and I think that's where people's insecurity or hesitation about working with any of the no-code tools comes in. You're worried about, if I put all this effort in and all this, and I do put in marketing efforts to get users and get the word out there about my site, will it hold up? That's what a lot of people are worried about. That's a legitimate concern. A few months ago, when Bubble came out with the announcement of offering new pricing plans, they were going to introduce and pissed off every bubble they were off. Xano got a lot of free publicity as a Bubble alternative. I don't think Xano really ever positioned itself as a Bubble alternative. If anything, they were complementary. They were saying that, like, look, you can host, look how much we can do as far as a back end, but Xano never seemed to be, to me, in their marketing, to be positioning themselves against Bubble or as an alternative. They're strictly back end. I don't think there's any front end to Xano. Around that time, some users suggested Bubble were throttling connections to Xano. I'm not sure if that is the case, but could be a possibility. That hasn't been my experience. All of my Xano queries have been super fast. Also, if you contact Xano support, they should be able to pinpoint where the issue is. But he already said that Xano, the problem is not with Xano. The problem is with, he already tested those queries, so that's not Xano's problem. First, great looking site. It was quite responsive for me. No lag at all. However, weigh on what you might do in Bubble. While a no-code solution is still complex to use, you don't have to be a developer to use it, but it does help. This is what has been said. Already knows how to use Bubble. Clearly, he built this whole site on Bubble. This is a lot of work. You would not be able to do this if you didn't already know how to use Bubble pretty high level. There's a lot going on here. What is Bubble support telling you? This is probably the first place I would have gone. I would have emailed support first before posting it. And if I got a silly answer, then I might have polled the audience here. And also, what are your logs showing capacity being maxed out? This is a good question right here. Like, this is also one of the first places I would have looked. I don't have an answer, but my first question is whether it's truly a Bubble capacity issue or if it's a glitch somewhere. Now, this is a smart comment because a lot of times we blanketly blame the platform that we're using, and that's the equivalent of like a carpenter blaming their tools. Like, you have to look at yourself first. You have to have the humility to say, I might have fucked something up here. I probably fucked something up here. There's a 90% chance I fucked something up here. So I mean, whenever I'm looking at this, I always start there. And if I can't figure it out myself, that's when I start reaching out to the platforms themselves. I'll go to Twitter. I'll go to the forum here. But in most cases, in almost all of my cases, it's a user error. This is my biggest worry. What exactly are the issues you're experiencing that your users saying the data isn't loading fast enough? Yeah, it wasn't too clear on if it was just a blank screen, like a white screen, he said in the first post, that would be a little concerning because that should never happen. A white screen when someone's trying to access the app, that would indicate something that's not something that you did. That's something that's a Bubble problem. Got the error too 5 minutes ago. Something about Cloudflare errors. I was also worried about that because I'm building applications for some clients right now, which should come close to 2,000 users an hour permanently, I guess. So the main question is it possible with Bubble to scale easily with growing visitors, customers that I don't have to worry about what's happening in the background? Is it possible with Bubble to scale easily with growing visitors, customers that I don't have to worry about what's happening in the background? And is it somehow possible to have like 50,000 visitors nightly, hourly for 7 days? I certainly hope so. All right, so Brandon came back here. I've been digging around a bit more right now as I'm typing. Google Analytics is showing my site getting about 300 users an hour, and everything seems fine. So this is good. Like, at least we have some context here over how much traffic is causing this site to not perform the way that he's expecting. Last night when I pinged my Discord community, the site was ready to go with some of the new search features. It was crashing for about an hour. Zero stress on Xano servers. I had one of their highest paid plans, and I personally worked with them to make sure it's well optimized. The site at that time was getting about 200 users per hour, so something is up. I woke up this morning and thought, I bet I just have a random scheduled workflow I built months ago that was just firing off tons of workflows at some random schedule. Well, that it wasn't, but take a look at this. So he's giving us a snapshot here of his logs here with the capacity tab. And it looks like he is almost reaching capacity here. And he's on the professional plan, right? He's at 90% here in this spike. Average CPU against these. So he's using up about 50% of the CPU here. The workflows are very low, 16 workflows for the current application. This is not a lot at all. But the page views, this is where it's at. The page views, 25,000 for the current application. All right, that hour-long spike is when Bubble crapped its pants. Notice the workflows running in the bottom left seem pretty normal, stable. But look at the visits. That flat, steady line you are seeing is the 300 users an hour. During that spike, Bubble measured 44,000 visits. That was not my audience. If every person in my Discord went to the site suddenly, and that would only be around 2,500 people, not a chance that happened. That's a big Discord server. Good job. Yet no spike in workflows of Google Analytics didn't detect any of it. All right, so I think what he's seeing here is a difference. There's kind of a discrepancy from what he's seeing in the bubble reported traffic versus what they're seeing on the in Google Analytics. There's some kind of discrepancy there. Yet no spike. I want so bad for this to be a user error on my part or even some sort of DDoS attack, but I really would hate to think that Bubble can't handle this kind of traffic. That's not a lot of traffic. Yeah, that would be concerning for me too. That's really not that much. Even if it was 44,000, well, that's a lot. I mean, it's a lot, but if we should expect that Bubble can handle that kind of traffic. Yeah. See what else they're saying here. Considering he's a site SEO affiliate, so WordPress plugin. No. The funny thing is, my SEO is garbage right now. For an affiliate-based site is an important thing to have. Also, because everything in Bubble is dynamic. Certainly, some big advantage that it's not the most SEO-friendly platform. That is, if you aren't willing to roll up your sleeves and make it a focus. I don't have other platforms in mind at the moment. The closest would be WeWeb from my research. I plan on introducing more app-like features in the site that involve a lot of conditional logic, so staying with Bubble is ideal since I'm very familiar with it. My main concern is just being on a server that can scale with my traffic. Yeah, and see, that's what I think this really comes down to, is like, which plan should I be on? If I expect to get 1,000 users per hour on my app because whatever I plan to do, I have a marketing initiative. I'm launching my site. Which plan should I be on? Probably at least the professional, I should say, but there's no indicators of that anywhere. Like, what I would like to see is like a little bit more information about, all right, if I'm planning to get this amount of traffic, this is the best plan to be optimized for that for that amount, for that volume. With the recent discovery of above regarding spike in pages that don't seem to be real, it makes me more optimistic about Bubble, as there may be something deeper going on. Still waiting to hear from Bubble. I would strongly recommend splitting your approach. Rebuild your site with something more purpose-built for content. Affiliate, you won't get very far in the SEO game when competitors are just. All right, well, but that wasn't the question. I mean, he's not worried about the SEO right now. Question is, can the site handle the traffic? Makes sense. Yeah, Bubble makes all that stuff really easy. So the value you get from Bubble is pretty big when we think about it being a full stack solution with a database to CSM, storage, hosting bandwidth. See, this is more in line with what I'm used to seeing from Keith. Keith always has these long, very, very informative and useful responses. So I was pretty surprised about his first response, but this is what I'm used to seeing from Keith. He's I don't know what compels him to contribute so much and so prolifically and so I don't know the word. He makes good posts, but he's consistent. The thing with Bubble and pricing and what you get for it is a little weird, in the sense that we don't see a lot of other solutions priced the same way. Like, if you built a Jamstack type static site using Cloud Functions and API for database and stuff, there's a lot that you can do for totally free in the prototyping proof of concept phase, as you can get away with the free community level of Gatsby. Free version of Netlify, perhaps for deployment over their CDN. The free levels of some headless CMS, and a free for very low cost, and lots of Bubble projects at the hobby or personal, and even some at the professional level could do if they were built in code, being delivered in this way without any actual cash outlay at all, especially if you're just a one-person team. And the main difference you'd see in sites like this versus Bubble is that their page load speeds would be orders of magnitude faster than what you would see in Bubble. And this is probably the main frustration with Bubble on these lower tier plans. Your app spends a lot of time waiting for the shared server to serve your page. See, this is good insight right here. This is if you're on the, I think on the professional plan is when you get a dedicated server. Is that true? Do they not say? Support, file storage. Where's the server? Server capacity basic, 10 reserved units. Yeah, and here's the other thing. We don't really know what these units are. Up to 30 units. Which of these plans is a dedicated server? I don't know. I think it's the professional and up. But even in more modern, even in that more modern and initial lower cost architecture, once you get serious, you're likely going to need to upgrade to the pro level of whatever CDN provider you're using. Gatsby Cloud. So we're talking about if you weren't on Bubble, and that goes to around $20 a month. The same thing might happen with your CMS of choice, and you might start consuming enough to compute on whatever cloud functions you think you're using, your database, and all these individually cheap, $20 to $100 per month start adding up. But the sheer amount of computer storage bandwidth you'd be buying, there is the fact that a lot more of what Bubble gives you with similar cost. But I don't think he's asking here from the perspective of value. He's not asking. Brandon isn't asking like, what value am I getting out of Bubble? He's asking, how do I make my site not crash? That's it. That's all he wants to know. He doesn't care how much it costs. He would probably pay double what he's paying Bubble right now, if he could get that reliably. And a lot of these things have a per user model, which in some cases your costs go up for each team member, where at least with Bubble, you get one collaborator at the pro level. Although within Jamstack, similar model. If you go over capacity with your CDN, you just get charged for what additional bandwidth you use during spikes, like the one you experienced. And this tends to be very low cost, and at least your site doesn't go down. In either model, there tends to be a big jump in cost to get the production enterprise, whatever you want to call it, level, where Bubble is now $475 a month for the production, similar ish level with approaches, maybe like $99 a month for CDN, a similar amount of your CMS and or database and various services. So Bubble's probably, there's something to sell. Bubble's probably more on the low end if you were doing this without Bubble. Another big difference is that where Bubble is charging per project, in other architectures, you might be able to have multiple projects, repositories, all under the same account, as long as you are within your max page storage build minutes, whatever. It doesn't matter how many projects you're running. Okay. This is one of the places where Bubble pricing model really starts to fall down. Like, just to support my plugins, I have multiple personal plans, and then I have a professional plan with a couple of extra capacity units for my VR calendar thingy. Ooh, that sounds cool. I wish I could just bundle them up on some Pro Plus plan at around $250 and have a bunch of these little projects in that plan. Basically, in the world of web app stuff today, cost grows like a step function. There's a metric shit ton of free or free-ish, and then there's a small step up to the okay, I got to be on the paid version of a couple things for the pro version, and the pro version of that one thing level, and this can last for a long time. And there's bigger step ups when you're in the this thing is cost real money category. Bubble, the free-ish level starts around $29 a month, and the small step is to $129. If the basic page serving stuff wasn't so vastly different with respect to other approaches, this wouldn't seem so bad in my mind. And I totally remember that getting to that small step with my VR calendar project, it's like, damn, this thing is ramen profitable, but now Bubble going to take my ramen. I didn't really mean for this reply to be a commentary on Bubble's pricing, but I just wanted to note that for where your app is now in terms of users hour, even if you were on some other architecture, you're now at that small step level, and you'd be paying $100 a month or right in that neighborhood for something, or in total for all of the some things that power your site. Though I've said so many times in this post already, the value for your money of the some things would rather be higher than Bubble would give us at that price point. Okay, so fine. This is kind of a commentary. He kind of calls out that this really didn't mean to be a commentary on Bubble's pricing. But it's not about the price. It's about the reliability, right? Like that was the original thought. But this does give some good context here. Like, I guess even if you were using another stack, you'd still run into these decisions that you have to make. It does give that perspective at the very least. I hope this is an insulting question, but are you absolutely certain you don't have a path in your app that is essentially just infinitely calling a page render? Those analytics look like an example of mutual recursions gone wild. Just a thought. This is a good suggestion here. Not insulting at all. That's actually pretty solid theory. My app basically has 3 pages. I'm in the 3 so much that I feel like I would have spotted something, likely isn't something using a workflow, because otherwise the workflow count would also spike. That is true. That is very true. Are there any common scenarios off the top of your head where such a thing would happen? Page load was fast and responsive. Yes. Keith, this means so much that you took the time to write this, full of fantastic insights, and gives me a lot to chew on. I know others have said the same in the forum, but it seems like the dream solution would be for Bubble to allow us to pay for monthly access to the Bubble Builder and then have the option to bring in your own hosting. Something like that would make Bubble such a great long-term solution for scaling without having to completely ditch the platform down the road, assuming you refuse to bring on developers. Again, much appreciated for the thoughts, and I'll definitely be reading it 10 times throughout the night to ponder the meaning of life. All right, let's see what DJ Ryan is just saying here. Now I'm just going to shoot in the dark here because I don't have a full handle on the full situation, but you point out the workflows running seems pretty normal still, while the other graphs show a spike in which you pinged in your Discord. It seems the workflows running is the anomaly. Why would the workflows continue to run once the site visits drop off? There could be back-end workflows running. As you pointed out, 44K visits was not impossible. I would say that it's weird that the workflow count was so low. It was like 14, and with 25,000 website visits, that doesn't add up. There should have been more workflows running. As you pointed out, 44,000 visits was impossible given your reach, so something in your no code is triggering revisits. Have you followed up on all the basic pointed out here? Understanding workflow execution. This is not a workflow issue. It can't be a workflow issue. The following is a great procedure used in coding debugging. I just want to go back to that screenshot that he shared first, because this is clearly not a workflow issue. There's 16 workflows running here. If this was a workflow issue, this would be in the hundreds of thousands. So yes, this graph looks crazy, but it caps out at 16. There's no way that this is a workflow issue. You managed to say the same. I mentioned this, but I believe you have a subtle logic issue that is causing the issue. Now the trick of how to produce the issue. I've had errors like this in traditional coding environments, such as React and Angular. Looking for debugging environments and Chrome developer tools can be helpful. One thing to keep in mind, the graph is the zoom level of each graph. That massive page view spike makes the rest of the traffic look near zero. Exactly. When in reality, there are 700 page views on each dot. Several hundred. When you look at the workflow graph, you see that the highest number is just 18. Exactly what I just said. That's exactly what I said. So for a workflow to be associated with the spike outside of a single workflow that closes the loop outside the workflow, we should see a graph that looks similar to this page view graph. Regardless of the insights you posted, I went through the video. I had another artificial spike happen yesterday. I backed up even more to see if I could time a pattern associated with the backend workflow. Maybe something random firing off every time. There's no consistency. The following picture shows the first spike I referenced. Okay, so yeah, like, look, this does not add up. This is 45,000 page views here, and there's only 40 workflows. So if every person just went to the page and did nothing, it would still be less than what we're seeing here. Less workflows than what we're seeing here. That doesn't make sense. Using the server capacity usage details section, I narrowed the time down to that spike, and the only thing to learn is that most of the resources are going to page load, specifically on the index page. And then when looking at the server logs in that time period, the only thing that shows up is an HTTP request. and responses from visitors, and nothing was out of the ordinary. No single user visiting the homepage a bunch of times, nothing. I had every single box in the advanced check section to see if anything else showed up except for the HTTP. So it's not a workflow. I've gone through every workflow with every single page you've gone. All right, so we've it seems to be, let's see what John Mark. John Mark is a regular contributor too. It seems to me that something is scraping the data from your website. There's not much you can do about that, as the IP address often change with each request. Since they've already collected most of your data, that's probably why the next peak is lower. It is also possible that people received many errors. They tried to refresh and refresh several times, which caused the first spike. This is just a thought. So something's scraping the website. That's an interesting prospect. That's something that, nobody really has any control over. What the hell would you do about something random scraping your website? Like a bot. I was thinking the same thing. It happens to any e-commerce site, and your price watching site seems to scrape me. Wish I could advise you on how to detect, prevent, but I'm no expert. So, I mean, it could be related to the type of site that it is, right? This site is a, it's the pricing for all of these products, and it seems like it's probably calling multiple APIs to get this information in. I knew scraping would be a thing, but my site is new to the public. I wouldn't anticipate the scrapers coming on so soon. Also, since the product data shows up on my search and product pages, wouldn't that be the place I'd see the high volume views as well? It's the exact same day and time from last week. Clearly, it's an automated thing, whether from your side or another, then in itself, it's good to know. Okay. Further, what others have suggested about scraping, you could try implementing a rate limiting rule in Cloudflare, which may or may not work if the loads are from different IPs. First point in this thread was only a few days ago. I want to just call out the community help that it's happening here. Even if the responses, even if the responses are off the mark, like they're still trying. Like everyone's jumping in and trying to pitch in here and say like trying to figure out what this problem is, because if this is a problem for one person, it's going to be a problem for all of us at some point. So I think that's where the motivation comes. But I appreciate that. I appreciate that people are so willing to just jump in and try to help fix a problem that's not even theirs. It's a community mindset. Totally right. Misread the graphs. His first graph showed different data that was previous week, went from 25,000 to 45,000. Totally got the confusion. Took me a while getting first used to AutoZoom. Here I'm making all my bets on Bubble. I'm doing my best to accept the fact that you can't scale without Xano. I wish we never had issues like this. If I were to be sending Bubble, if I were to be sending Bubble 1,000 emails until I got a call from the engineering team. Good luck. All right, let's skip down to Brandon's. It looks like resolution. As of right now, all the product data is straight from the retailers themselves with their APIs. Yep, so I was right. He is calling all the different APIs. Oops. Certain APIs I have to connect to are more complicated means of authentication that Bubble doesn't support out of the box. Plus, when I start doing back-end workflow tests to pull every pricing every minute, it was fairly taxing on my overall site usage. Yeah, I could see that happening. Hence why I handle that more complex stuff on Xano and then feed it into my Bubble site as a single API feed. And Xano allows for unlimited API calls, unlike many other database services, which have paid tiers. Update. As suggested by the others in the forum, I did reach out to Bubble support last week, but I've not heard back. I'm sure the weekend didn't help with the timeline for that. 24/7. As for the site capacity itself, surprising, I have no issues since the last one I reported to the community. Granted, I have not done any marketing pushes to my community, but the traffic has been pretty stable at about 400 users, 15,000 page views per hour, with CPU usage hovering between 4 and 9%. All right, so that's kind of like where you want it. I did rip my site apart over the weekend, deleting a lot of the unused stuff on the other pages and old backend workflows, and I'm 99% sure I had nothing to do with the spike. But here we are with no outages since then, so perhaps there was some odd tiny detail that was cleared out in the process. Nevertheless, I'll continue to monitor this as I'll update those following I hear back from Bubble. And I'll also do a marketing push to see if I can replicate that page view once again. Otherwise, I think we're pretty close to chalking this up to either a rendered scraping attempt. I'm still suspicious about that possibility, or a user error on my part with something. All right, so Brandon, I think, has taken kind of like chalked this up, like he says, he's chalked it up to a, something that was not in his control, but not also necessarily Bubble's fault. The page view thing is very strange. I've never seen that before. But again, if we had a little bit more insight into, maybe even where that website traffic was coming from, that might help us narrow down why this happened. So I don't think Bubble is at fault here. And I think Brandon did a good job of investigating and keeping an open mind about like what the cause of this, narrowing down what this problem was. And I think that's what we all have to do when we hit these problems, not just automatically blame the platform that we're using, because there's a good chance that it's our fault. So I think he's kind of resolved here. I want to follow this and just track this the progress on here, because this is one of the few conversations that I see around problems with website the traffic. So it's an interesting topic to me. How much traffic can a landing? This is another one. How much traffic can a landing page built on Bubble handle? Just built a landing page on Bubble, and now I'm worried it will be slow with 50 to 100 simultaneous visitors. So anyone have insight on how much traffic on the personal plan can handle if it's just a landing page without workflows or anything, just navigation buttons? I have an app on the personal legacy plan, which is essentially a marketing website with no workflow runs. I'm not getting 100 concurrent page views, but the data below might help. I think what would happen is that you'd probably just get an email from Bubble saying, like, hey, you're hitting the server limits or the capacity limits based on the traffic that you're experiencing. You may want to consider upgrading into a different plan. I think that might be what happens, but that's kind of ad hoc. I would love to know, like, what are the recommended plans for expected traffic? And I think that's the only thing that Bubble can do here to make this a little bit more transparent, is just recommend a plan for expected traffic. But other than that, like, you can see how like the initial email or the initial post that Brandon made was very it was like, I'm losing faith in Bubble. And then by the end of it, in a few days time, it was, oh, this is probably some random error that I'm not sure. We're not sure whose fault it is, but again, happy to see that everyone kind of jumped in here and tried to debug the problem, because this is all of our problem, right? This is all of our problems here. If one Bubble site goes down, who's to say that can't happen to all of us, right? So we do want to know why. All right. I think that's all. I actually did want to check the Bubble manual too to see if there's anything related to traffic in here. I don't think there is. Used with Google Analytics. Google Analytics is a popular tool to measure traffic to your app. Yeah, it just kind of takes you to the Google Analytics portion of the manual, which again really doesn't tell us much about how traffic is handled. But I think it's safe to say that that whatever happened in Brandon's situation was not a user error. It certainly wasn't a workflow issue. It probably was something random, but that's what happens with these platforms and apps and technology. There's sometimes just random shit that goes down. All right, everybody. That's my thought on this situation. I will be back tomorrow, 1 p.m.